which is a website known for its many quotes by famous people all around the world, posted this quote. Debbie, would you mind reading this for me?
I will try. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time.
Now I want you to remember those words, try one more time. This quote was by Thomas Alva Edison. Thomas Alva Edison was born February 11th in 1847 to the parents Samuel and Nancy Edison. Rutgers.com, which is the State University of New Jersey, posted an article titled The Thomas Edison Papers, and they said that he was the last of the 7 siblings born. This is good. Those 7 siblings, there was Marion, Harriet, and William. They were all born in Vienna, Ontario, Canada. Then the family moved to Milan, Ohio, where they had Callie, Samuel, and Eliza. Now those children, they all died at a very early age due to the harsh winters in Milan. Then the parents tried again, and they conceived Thomas Edison. In 1854, the family moved to Port Huron, Michigan. In Port Huron, Michigan, where Thomas went to school, like many of us did. But the thing about it was that he only went to school for 12 weeks. His teachers said that he was hyperactive, that he was prone to distraction. One of his teachers even said that he was addled. Can you imagine being that teacher that kicked Thomas Edison out of school? Boy, did they get it wrong. But then again, how many times did we get the perception about other people wrong? From that point forward, Thomas Edison was homeschooled by his mother. At the age of 12, Thomas Edison began working at the train station selling newspapers along the Grand Trunk Railroad line. At these railroad tracks, Thomas Edison was 12 years old and was selling newspapers, making money. He also produced his own newspaper called the Grand Trunk Herald. At an early age, this guy was publishing and selling them. Thomas gained a lot more than money while selling these papers. He also saved a 3-year-old child's life from being ran over from an errant train. That began a relationship with that 3-year-old's father, which that father began teaching Thomas how to operate the telegraph. For the next 5 years, Thomas traveled the Midwest as a telegraph operator. During this time, he also experimented with telegraph technology and became acquainted with electrical signs. At the age of 19, Thomas worked for the world's oldest and largest news organization, the Associated Press. He worked the night shift, which allowed him time for reading and experimenting. As technology does, the telegraph became more advanced, and instead of being inscribed on paper, it changed to a receiver that produced sound. Now, one thing I didn't tell you back there a little bit earlier is when he was young, he had scarlet fever real bad. I don't know if y'all know that. I don't even know what it is, but it's basically a fever. I know that. But it basically gave him, it made it hard for him to hear. Real hard for it. A disability, really, if you put it nowadays. But it was hard for him to hear. So when that telegraph changed, it was hard for him to keep his employment. At the age of 21, Thomas returned home to a mother that was mentally ill and a father that was out of work. This was a point where Thomas, like many of us, realized that he needed to take control of his life. This realization pushed Thomas to move to Boston. He got a job at the Western Union Company. During his downtime, he designed and patented an electronic voting recorder. Boston is the home of Thomas's first design. Unfortunately for Thomas, this invention did not pay off because politicians weren't interested in an invention or a voting machine that would count votes so quick. Imagine that. Despite the frustration of an invention not needed, Thomas moved to New York at the age of 22. New York is home of Thomas Edison's first successful invention. The universal stock printer was the first invention that landed Thomas a foundation for his future. He was paid $40,000 for this invention. Now, I wanted to get some facts for you about what it would have been like to get $40,000 in 1869 from the Census Bureau, but the government was shut down, so I couldn't get the actual information during that time. However, I can assure you that $40,000 was a lot of money. This invention allowed for Thomas to quit his job as a telegraph operator and devote his time to inventing over 1,000 patents and begin his own family. In 1871, Thomas, aged 24, married Mary Stilwell at the age of 16. In this marriage, they had 3 children, Marion, Thomas, and William. Mary died at the age of 29 from a suspected brain tumor. For me, this shows us as a reminder that money is not the cure to everything. 2 years later, Thomas married 19-year-old Mina Miller, who also gave Thomas 3 children, Madeline, Charles, and Theodore. Even though this would have been trying years, Thomas was still able to gain a reputation as a first-rate inventor and businessman. Can you imagine? You just became a millionaire, just got married, 3 kids, wife dies. Think about that for a second. Don't know what that was. Think about that for a second. What would it have been like? What were those little moments alone like? When you wake up and you're standing in front of the mirror and your wife has just passed away. You got 3 children. Understand, they were married for 13 years. Those children were all young when his wife died. But this whole world is waiting on his next great invention. I can't tell you, what actually happened or any of that stuff, but I can put in some of my own emotion into that. But he didn't break down and crumble like a lot of us do. Or not say do, would do. Or could do, whatever. It was during these years when Thomas developed a method for recording sound, which he later introduced the phonograph. Then he introduced the motion picture camera. These were both major milestones for all of us even today. Before this, there was no way to hear that favorite song or watch a movie with sound. He also had an invention that a lot of you ladies and maybe some guys can relate to, the first talking doll. Now this doll did not do well during this time because the technology was not there. Even though this was considered one of Thomas's failures, it was the first talking doll that little girls had to play with during this time. Another one of Thomas's failures was the cement house and cement furniture. Some of these homes are still standing today. There are over 1,000 inventions Thomas Edison invented, but one I want to focus on for the purpose of this speech is the light bulb. Let's be clear, Thomas Edison did not invent the light bulb. The light bulb already existed. What he did was take the light bulb that would have only lasted for 150 hours and gave it the ability to last 1,200 hours. One of the things I found most impressive about this transformation of this light bulb is the number of attempts it took Thomas Edison to create it. I had trouble getting the exact number, but I assure you it was over 1,000. Think about that, over 1,000 attempts at an idea he could have just gave up on at any time. But like Thomas's life, he continued to try again and would soon produce the first long-lasting light bulb. This invention brought with it other inventions like the common light switch. More importantly, it helped introduce Thomas Edison's idea of distributing electricity to whole cities. Soon after arose Thomas Edison Lighting Company, which later became known as General Electric. Thomas Edison was more than the man that invented the light bulb. At any time, Thomas could have not tried. He could have been like, forget this school thing. Those teachers are right, I'm out of it. I don't need to work at the train tracks. Making a newspaper takes too much time. I don't need to worry about that 3-year-old child. That's somebody else's kid. Man, you can't teach me how to run a telegraph. I'm addled. I'm too addled for that. I don't need a job at the Associated Press or Western Union. Here's a great invention. What do you mean you don't need it? Man, I'm done. My parents are doing bad. I'm done. My wife died. I got 3 kids. I'm done. Thomas Edison had over 1,000 inventions. Here's a list of some. Sorry. He died October 18th of 1931 at the age of 84. And he died trying. If you remember anything in this speech, remember, keep trying. The end.